Hey guys, welcome to Jurassic Collectables. Today we're not going to be looking at this Velociraptor claw replica. However, I have done a video on this, so go and check out that review. Today we're actually going to be looking at the Jurassic Park novel by Michael Crichton. This is my copy. As you can see, it's pretty beaten up. It's got some big tears in it. It's certainly been well read, let's put it that way. And I bought this back in 1993 when the film came out. As a kid, I actually struggled to understand all of the ideas in the book, particularly Ian Malcolm's ideas and the idea of chaos theory, which is presented in the book. But at the same time, I got a lot of the dinosaur concepts and was really quite shocked by how violent some of the scenes are in the book. And I think it made a sort of a more gritty reality to the world of Jurassic Park. So yeah. Now I'm going to quickly do this review in two parts. I'm going to just talk about the book broadly without giving away too many spoilers, and then I'm going to talk in the second half about the ending and what I thought about the ending and who dies and who lives. So if you haven't read the book, I would suggest you turn off at that point and I'll tell you when that is. So the book actually opens very similar to the way it does in the Lost World with the attack on the beach, and it sets up this whole mystery of there's something going on an offshore island. You don't know what it is, and slowly you're given little bits of information that there's an amusement park being built on an island offshore. The book is very sort of paranoid about the sort of control that man takes for granted with science. The fact that men quite often try to make big leaps and bounds in science without thinking about whether they should do those things first, and whether they have enough responsibility to do those things, whether they've really thought out all the problems that could happen, that could arise. So it's in that way, it's like a techno thriller in a way. It's a bit paranoid, and it warns mankind that it shouldn't tamper with things that have been going on for millions of years and know how to run themselves and think that they can control and own it. It's a really, really nice, nicely written argument, and it's constant throughout the book, mainly through Ian Malcolm's role. Now, Ian Malcolm talks about chaos theory, which is sort of unpredictability, and it's through maths that he tries to explain this unpredictability that's present in such things as weather systems, and basically it bakes down to the idea that there are tiny little errors, there are tiny little imperfections in nature that build up and cause big unpredictable problems in nature, and weather's a good example of that. It's a good template, and he uses this same model of weather and unpredictability to show that Jurassic Park will fail. And right from the beginning, Ian Malcolm says Jurassic Park will fail. He says that he's modelled it in the computer. He's foreseen that the complications could be disastrous for the island. Then you have John Hammond, who's this kind of this old entrepreneur, and he really wants to, before he dies, he wants to sort of make a big show for the world. He wants to also, he keeps on talking about the fact he wants to make lots of money, which is something that John Hammond in the film doesn't talk about that much, although it's mentioned briefly that they will make a lot of money. So Hammond's goals are to make a show for the world, have something for kids to enjoy, but make a lot of money from it. And in that way he's corrupt. Just through the book, he's described as a sort of a almost schizophrenic type character, where he'll be suddenly angry and then be all sort of relaxed and calm and friendly, and that kind of puts you at unease with his character a little bit. Okay, so that's sort of the general direction of the book. Obviously the thrust of the story, going to the island, there being dinosaurs, there being the awe factor, and then things breaking out and chaos occurring, is pretty much similar to the film. It happens in different orders. Some of the lines are lifted from the book and put in the film. Sometimes it's other characters saying them, but pretty much it follows the story of the film. So that's my sort of spoiler-free introduction to the book. So if you haven't read the book, I would stop now, because I'm going to start talking about what's actually in the book and it might spoil it for you. Okay, so the book, as I said, opens on an incident on a beach, and it's actually exactly the same as what happens to the Bowman family at the beginning of The Lost World. A girl is attacked by Procompsognathus, the small chicken-like dinosaurs, and it starts with a mystery, really. It's you're trying to work out what's going on, and it seems like a new type of animal has arrived on the mainland. This isn't explained for a long part of the beginning of the story, and I think as a child, I lost interest because I didn't understand why it wasn't similar to the film. I wanted an explanation for the raptor attack, which does take place, but is talked about indirectly. You don't actually, you don't read about the actual raptor cage attack that we see in the film, although it does occur. The book then goes on to introduce Alan and Ellie, the fact that they're paleontologists, and the fact that they work in the Badlands, and it's actually very similar in a lot of respects to the film. You get a feel for what they're like. The main thing I noticed was Alan Grant's a lot older than Ellie. Ellie is 24 and Alan's supposed to be in his 40s, and he's kind of he's described as a burly man with like a beard, and he's different to the way he is in the film. And also the age gap between Alan and Ellie means that they are not a couple. They're separate. He's like a wise old man and she's like a young understudy. So that gives you a different feeling to their relationship. It's more professional, and actually it works better because the fact that they don't have a relationship means there's no nonsense there. It's purely about the dinosaurs on the island and them being excited about that. It's less about them being a couple and the romance there. The other major thing about Alan Grant is that he loves kids. He absolutely loves kids because they're the only other people in the world who really love dinosaurs. And that's dramatically different to how he is in the film. He despises kids, and through the course of the film learns to love kids. So that's completely different to how it's depicted in the book. And when he gets lumped with Tim and Lex, he's actually very decisive, and he wants to protect them, and he cares for Tim and Lex. So the fact that he loves kids puts a bit more of a sort of a heroic edge to his character. All the way through the book, there are graphs, charts, there are diagrams that represent the chaos theory that Ian Malcolm discusses. So let me see if I can find one for you. They come in different iterations throughout the book, and they represent the kind of the way that the island is going. So here you can see third iteration, and it basically turns into a fractal pattern that represents his theory. At the bottom here it says, details emerge more clearly as the fractal curve is redrawn, Ian Malcolm. And as the book goes on and as the park becomes more chaotic, the diagram becomes more complex, and there's more of a quote that sort of summarizes what's going on in the park. So it's almost like it's a representation of his mathematical model. It's also clear that Crichton has an interest in computing. He uses a lot of computer interfaces, snippets of coding. Obviously now it's really dated, but I think it's just reinforcing the fact that he's trying to show how computing and automation of things is just a sort of a way of men trying to control this technology that they've created, and really it's hopeless. Probably the best example of this is the fact that they use this system to count the dinosaurs on the island, and they have motion sensors across the island. It's briefly mentioned in the film, but in the book it's quite key to tracking all animals on the island, including Grant and the kids. But this count system is used, and they keep on checking a certain number of dinosaurs to see if, you know, the number matches what they expect it to be. But the problem is they don't ever check any higher than that number. So when Ian Malcolm poses the question, can we check higher than that number, the computer suddenly finds lots of excess dinosaurs. And the thing is, this is how they learn that the dinosaurs are breeding. They don't understand how, because up until that point they think they're all female, but it's just an interesting way, an exciting way to show that the dinosaurs are breeding. And it's because it's sort of external, you're not there on the island, you're just seeing it through this cold technology. It reinforces this idea of, like, you know, science going out of control and technology being out of control, and how our systems, no matter how much we try to control it, we really have no control whatsoever. In terms of the deaths of the characters, probably some of the most grim, or the ones that stand out, are probably Dennis Nedry's death. Dennis Nedry's death is much more, is described in more detail in the book, and it's quite nauseating, really. It's quite a scary scene. Also, John Hammond does not live. John Hammond dies. He's eaten by a pack of Compsognathus, and they have apparently their bite is also induces a toxin that's sort of like a narcotic and makes you feel dizzy, yeah, he's devoured by a pack of Compsognathus, so that's completely different to the ending of the film. It's suggested at the end of the book that Ian Malcolm is dead, although we know that's not true because he appears in the novel The Lost World, so he survives. But in terms of what Crichton intended for this book, Malcolm dies. And that's interesting because it's the two halves of the story. You've got Hammond and Ian Malcolm, and they're opposed to each other. Hammond believes he can make Jurassic Park happen. Ian Malcolm believes he's doomed to fail. And in a way, that sort of says that neither man can know the outcome of nature. Neither man can definitely say they know what's going to happen, and nature defies them by killing them both off. It's basically, it reinforces the fact that Hammond and Ian Malcolm, neither of them can know what nature has in store. Neither of them know what chaos is going to happen, and I think that's really good because both of them are sort of opposed to each other, you know, and neither of them are open-minded. So that makes sense that they both get killed off at the end of the book. And in a way, the fact that he reappears in the second novel, and I know that's coming, it ruins it a little bit, just a little bit. But yeah, that's my feeling about the ending. It's quite a clever ending, really. I'm trying to think of some other deaths. Ed Regis is basically plays Gennaro in the T-Rex attack, but he's not eaten on the toilet or anything like that. He's eaten afterwards, and it's not by the big T-Rex, it's by a younger juvenile T-Rex. So he has a bit of a different death, and they find his leg later on, so you don't really know any more than that. You just know he's been eaten. But yeah, that's quite a grim way for him to go. Trying to think who else. Henry Wu plays quite a big role in this film. He's quite often talking to Hammond. He's got a small part in the film, but in the book he's got a big role. And he unfortunately is eaten by raptors. He steps outside the visitor centre, or the lodge, sorry, and is snapped up by the raptors and is killed quite quickly in a very grim way. Who else dies? I'm trying to think now. A lot of the workmen die, security guards die. You don't necessarily see it, they just find the bodies. So yeah, that pretty much summarises the deaths of the people on the island. Malcolm talks about the fact that he can foresee a big disaster coming. And the thing is, Nedry sort of triggers the first problem when he goes to try and steal the embryos, like he does in the film. The fences start going off, and the T-Rex breaks out and does the road attack. Now, it seems like everything's coming back online, and they're working hard to try and get the park back online. But it comes to a point when Arnold realizes that they're running off of auxiliary power, not main power, and it means that the fences have been off throughout this time. They thought they had the park fixed, and that's it. That's the clinching moment. That's the moment where you realize chaos is now breaking loose, and they hear a scream down the hall, and you realize the raptors are broken loose, these intelligent, fast dinosaurs that Muldoon seems very agitated about. So that's really the moment where chaos breaks loose, and from that moment on, the book spirals downwards, and it gets really fast in pace. And actually, I'd say the last sort of quarter of the book feels rushed. I kind of feel like I would have liked to have stayed in the park more. I kind of wanted to stay in that world, but probably because I'm such a big fan of the story. But it feels like the last sort of section is quite rushed, and it touches on some ideas that show the dinosaurs being quite close to birds, like the raptors are trying to migrate off the island, and that's actually one of the last points I want to talk about, is the ending of the book. So the ending of the book talks about the surviving characters being stuck in a hotel. They're not allowed to leave. And one of the guys who found a carcass of one of the dinosaurs on the mainland, one of the Compsognathus that they found on the mainland, comes and talks to Grant and explains that the government is worried because they've found these animals migrating across Central America, and they're eating lysine-rich food, which, if you remember, lysine was the protein that they put in the foods in it, and it meant that it kept the dinosaurs alive. But it turns out they're eating lysine-rich food on the mainland, and the raptors are the ones who are actually migrating onto the mainland, and they've escaped. And that's something that is never touched on in the film. And I think actually, in a way, I preferred the film, everything being encapsulated. I think the fact that the dinosaurs are migrating across the mainland is, it's quite a big open ending. It's nice. It works better as a book, but at the same time, you do fear that this book isn't over. It's not over. People are still going to be, going to die because the raptors are loose, and they're so dangerous. So it is a bit more of an open ending, and I'd be really interested to hear what you guys think about that open ending, and what your thoughts are about the book in general. But that open ending, to me, I don't know, it feels different, and just, I don't know, I think I prefer the closed ending of the film. So yeah, that's sort of my review of the book. I hope I haven't bored you to tears, but it's really worth a read, guys. If you get a chance, give it a read. Just be patient with it and sit down, and I think you'll enjoy it. I've read this book cover to cover. I've just finished reading it again, probably for about the 5th or 6th time, and it took me about 3 days to get through, on and off reading. It's a really nice, quick read. You can get through it quickly because it's exciting. So I definitely recommend picking this up if you can. Okay guys, comment, rate and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.